Hey everyone, today I have Roberta Silva, who works with a ton of companies in Brazil. She's actually a consultant who worked with more than 200 companies back there. She specializes in helping them set up the customer success program. And I have her on the show because she won actually one of the top 100 customer success influencers in 2021. So this video is going to be about a walkthrough on how to approach designing a customer journey map and why is it so important with regards to the financial impact it might have on your company. We're going to go through each phase. What are the KPIs for each or the metrics for each phase? What are the activities you need to consider? And how should you tailor it per the personas you're going to work with? I can't wait to explore that. I have Roberta Silva and our co-host, Ariel Justo, the Customer Success Manager at Staysafe, to help translate Rob's when she speaks because she's much more fluent in Portuguese. So if you're a Portuguese speaker, I think you're going to really dig this video. And if not, we're going to have Ariel help us through the conversation. Can't wait to dig in. Stay tuned. Robs, thank you so much for joining us today.
É um prazer estar aqui com outros povos, outra cultura, falando com pessoas fora do Brasil que vão ouvir a gente. Estou empolgada com essa conversa e espero que seja produtiva para todo mundo.
She's saying that she's very happy to be not only with talking to Brazilian people, but also other people from other countries. Very excited about this conversation and looking forward to what it's going to bring to her.
Yeah, especially when your model is all about designing a customer journey that really can make a difference for a company. Tell me a little bit about that framework.
Esse desenho da jornada de o que é jornada de cliente, o que é jornada de uso de produto ou de serviço, ainda é muito confuso para os novos profissionais e até para as empresas. Então, esse desenho de jornada de uso é diferente de um desenho de jornada de cliente. Jornada de uso a partir do momento da contratação. E de cliente é desde lá de concepção de produto, né? Acho que aí começa essa grande diferença.
You're saying that there is a big difference between the concepts behind the usage journey compared to the client journey. They're not the same. And a lot of people are still a bit confused with the usage journey. It's something quite new, but at the same time, it's where the work relies on right now from Roberta and what she's looking into.
Tell me a little bit about the differences. How do you see the difference between the usage journey and the customer success journey?
Acho que a jornada de uso, ela está mais relacionada ao momento ali do start do contrato, do momento da contratação, onde eu preciso fazer aquilo funcionar. E aí, indiferente se é de serviço ou se é de produto, eu tenho que passar uma série de informações, configurações, para que o cliente consiga usar aquele serviço ou aquele produto. Já a jornada de experiência de cliente envolve outros cenários, outras questões de sentimento, de experiência mesmo, e não tão técnicas quanto fazer funcionar.
In a nutshell, she's saying that the user journey is a little more technical than the customer success journey. It starts from the moment you sign the contract, and it's all the strategies and dynamics you should adopt in order for that client to use the product in the best way possible and therefore be very satisfied with that. The customer success one, on the other hand, involves other things like the feeling, the sentiment of the client, other things that are not as technical as the usage adoption, and therefore differs a little bit on a different universe.
Tell me a little bit when you're designing a customer success journey, what are the considerations? I think you had a slide that you prepared for us.
Eu considero 3 fases do momento de vida do cliente ali, 3 macrofases, que é a de onboarding, né, a de implantação, como chamamos no Brasil, né, fazer funcionar ali no primeiro momento. Segundo momento dele, né, tá configurado, tá pronto para usar? Não quer dizer que ele está usando, ele precisa de um momento de adaptação, de adoção de produto ou de serviço. E o terceiro momento de engajamento, quando ele já está acostumado com o produto, ele precisa ser despertado para novos produtos, o upsell ou o cross-sell, ou para que ele esteja disposto a uma renovação no futuro.
Basically mentioned three stages. The first one is the very beginning, which is the moment for the onboarding, or as we call it in Brazil, we still sometimes call it implementation phases, as we used to in the past as well out here. Then after everything is ready, like the platform is set up, there is the product adoption, because the fact that the platform is already ready doesn't mean that the client is using it. So there is a product adoption, the strategies behind that moment, and after that comes the engaging period. So not only using, but actually understanding what it means, how it impacts your everyday life. So therefore, you can build up the field for upsell, cross-sell, or even just a renewal. So these are the three stages that she's focused on.
And the top part of the model is the key metrics relevant for each phase?
Dentro de cada uma dessas macrofases, existem KPIs, métricas, formas de acompanhar se naquele momento o cliente está tendo sucesso. E sucesso ele não tem talvez, ele é sim ou é não. Não tenho, quase tive sucesso, diferente da experiência. Então, dentro do onboarding, por exemplo, foi entregue dentro do tempo que foi vendido, dentro do planejamento, a qualidade desse serviço ou desse produto atendeu a expectativa de implantação do cliente? Então, aqui no onboarding, a gente já tem as duas primeiras métricas, tempo médio de implantação e a satisfação.
Yeah, she's saying that within all these, using her words, macro phases of this process, there are micro phases as well within each one of them. And they are very much like objective ones, like it's a very yes or no situation. Like, for example, in the onboarding, was the implementation ready? Was the product ready by the due date that was accorded with the client when they first signed or when it was first planned? Yes or no? Was the client connected and having all the little perks and specifications from the product as it was previously agreed by the time it was supposed to? Yes or no? So all of these little details form part of these macro phases, which are the three stages you mentioned.
Dentro da fase de adoção, por exemplo, quando eu quero saber se o cliente já se adaptou, já adquiriu o hábito de usar o produto, eu vou criar ali o Health Score. Importamos a palavra, adotamos aqui saúde do cliente como Health Score. Eu posso pesquisar o esforço da adoção também. Se tem sido muito difícil ou muito trabalhoso ou leva muito tempo ou como tem sido essa fase de adoção do cliente, e ali eu consigo medir se ele está tendo sucesso na adaptação também.
Within, for example, the adoption, one of the metrics that she uses is the health score. She even says that we imported that word in Brazil and we use it in the English form, health score. And within that score, we have a perception, an idea of how this is actually working out during that stage, if there is anything that is necessary for this to be improved, if it's meeting the expectations, if we are going according to the plan. I actually have a question about this. You said it's very objective. The ways for you to measure those micro phases are very objective. But it's interesting because the health score, this needs to be evaluated by a person, I would assume, and according to some metrics. But the person needs to make a judgment and define how this health score is going on. How do you perceive the human factor within this technical and very strategic process?
Eu acho que dentro de cada uma desses mini objetivos que a gente tem de pegar o cliente pela mão e levar ele ao longo dessa jornada, o Health Score ele é o que mais representa se isso funciona sim ou não, justamente pela escala de pontuação que podemos usar. Então, se eu tenho um cliente que está com a saúde baixa, ou seja, ele não está me pagando, ele não está usando, ele não está logando, ele não interage comigo em nenhum canal, de nenhuma forma. Eu estabeleço alguns critérios para saber o que é saúde para mim, para o meu produto, para o meu cliente. Então, não tem receita de bolo. É cada um descobrir o que é saúde no seu modelo de negócio. Eu até brinco bastante, para na frente do seu diretor e pergunta para ele o que é um cliente saudável. Ele não sabe responder.
So she's basically saying here that all the process, it's a way for her obviously to define and determine what is being needed in order to deliver that perception. So that the human factor comes into that evaluation, that perception and that connection with the process and how the client is using it. Like, is the client not paying me correctly? Is the client not logging in as much as they should? So what is going on? But there is not really a recipe, like one recipe here. It depends. We need to use the human factor to identify a different industry industry, depending on what it's a company you're working for, also different clients within that industry. Maybe smaller clients will have a different perspective and approach to the product than a bigger one. Success for them is going to mean one thing, but other ones. And she even used an example that I liked a lot. It's like, you want to check this out? Sit down in front of your director, whoever is a decision maker within your company, and ask them what a healthy client or a healthy customer, a successful customer looks like. You will see that they don't have a very clear answer about it, and I've added on. Do it even better. Try to engage with 3 directors within your company separately and ask them what a healthy customer looks like, and I guarantee you it's going to come 3 different answers from them. They're not going to be the same.
Yeah, that's actually one of the exercises that I love doing with my clients. How does your best-in-class customer behaves? Or what do they do? Or what kind of use cases are they using and kind of tools that they are using? Totally resonates with me, the fact that she's asking herself and her team that question.
Outra questão que eu uso bastante para gerar essa diferença, essa linha de raciocínio do que é sucesso do cliente, é que nós não sabemos o que é sucesso para o cliente. E nós não perguntamos para ele. Então fica um buraco ali, a gente fica tentando preencher com processos que não trazem resultado, o equilíbrio entre o que é sucesso para a empresa e o que é sucesso para o cliente. E aí a gente acredita que só porque vendeu já tivemos sucesso. Não, o cliente pode cancelar assim que ele tiver sucesso. E aí eu costumo dar um exemplo que você também vai rir, Ariel, que é o do Tinder. O cliente cancela quando tem sucesso. Então, qual é a perspectiva de sucesso do seu cliente? Ele vai cancelar quando ele tiver sucesso?
She's basically saying that one discussion that people never really know about, and they don't have a lot of clearance about that, is what does it mean for the client to achieve success? And we, a lot of times, don't really understand that. We try to see it from our perspective, but then the client has their own perspective, and we try to fill up this gap in between what we think and what they think in order to find a midterm that means customer success. But she gave an example that I loved. Like, you can imagine like a dating app. For a dating app, a client that achieved success means a client that canceled the service, deleted the dating app. That means they have achieved success. So what exactly does success mean? It's not just the sales perspective. It's just not a renewals perspective. It's much more than that.
I actually think that it's a very important question to ask a customer. When we finish onboarding, what would a successful onboarding looks like? And really aim for something that's reasonable. If the customer comes back and brings in an expectation that's unreasonable, at least we have a point of negotiation right at the onset of the process. Otherwise, we're just swimming in the dark, hoping to get to some finish line that we might be completely misaligned with our customers. I did want to ask her about the metrics. It sounds like during onboarding, she's looking at customer satisfaction scores and TMI. What does that mean, TMI?
Irit, this is actually a Portuguese acronym. So it means average implementation time.
One of the most popular things that we're seeing in implementation is instead of tracking implementation time, is time to first value delivered instead of time to completing onboarding. Because when we put time to finish onboarding, some people would just rush to say, hey, they went live, but the customer is not even using it, or they're not using it in a way that gives them any value. By putting a different metric, time to first value delivered, then the team is on the hook to make sure that onboarding is not complete until the customer feels like they're actually getting some use cases that are valuable for them. What do you think about that?
Bom, aqui eu vejo 2 questões. Primeiro, que a gente começa a contar o onboarding a partir de quando nós começamos. Então, eu mandei o e-mail de boas-vindas, então eu comecei. E a gente desconsidera que o cliente está contando desde a hora que ele pagou. Então, aqui já tem um gap de tempo que nós não estamos contando. Ou nós contamos só as horas que nós atuamos diretamente, e não o total de tempo decorrido. Então, um tempo de implantação é desde o dia que o cliente contratou até o dia que ele consegue usar. Não importa quantas horas nós dedicamos ou quanto tempo o cliente ficou esperando em cada etapa. E aí que ficam os gaps. É aí que a gente tem que entender onde que tem um gargalo operacional. Por que eu não consegui fazer mais rápido ou por que o cliente não fez a parte dele do acordo da implantação? Acho que esse é o primeiro ponto, a contagem do tempo.
So, Irit, I think she's saying also the concept behind how they measure time on that sense is very relevant. For them, a lot of times, not just for them, but like in general, people consider or start measuring the time for an implementation by the moment that you enter that process, even by sending welcoming email or by having a phone contact with the client. Many times you forget that the client is actually counting from the moment they have paid or from the moment they have signed the contract. And you got to take these into consideration because there are these little gaps between your perspective, their perspective, which in the end counts. And it's not just like the system is ready, but like, is the client system ready? That's the most important thing. During that process, what she was saying is that identifying those little gaps, they try to identify also some bottlenecks, some operational bottlenecks that could delay the process or not necessarily delay, but make it to be delivered not in the way that you were supposed to. So the product is there, but not ideal. The client isn't actually fully aware of all his or her capacities. All of that form part of how you measure this time. So they take this into consideration.
O segundo ponto, quando eu finalizo o onboarding? Acaba tendo a confusão também de juntar a fase de adoção com o onboarding. E se o nosso produto ele é técnico ou ele precisa de uma capacidade técnica muito alta, né? Ou é uma implementação que tem que passar um cabo, tem que conectar alguma coisa, é físico. Não tem como a pessoa que fez a implantação ajudar o cliente a adotar o produto. Então, será que é a mesma fase? Será que eu não estou misturando duas habilidades humanas diferentes? Mesmo que sejam serviços, por exemplo. Eu vendi e dei as instruções de como a pessoa usa, mas sou eu que vou educá-la no dia a dia para usar? Sou eu que tenho essa habilidade humana de educação? Então, essa linha onde quando termina o onboarding, quando está funcionando, check, ponto, acabou, agora deixa eu te ajudar a criar o hábito de uso. São duas fases distintas.
Yeah, she's saying that the second phase Irit, is also like not just like delivering the training or the services itself, but also what else is needed for these services to be fully provided to a client. Is there any kind of like logistics that needs to be provided? I don't know, maybe a cable installation or maybe some sort of like redesigning of a space in order to accommodate whatever your product is. Is that something that I am responsible for? Is that something that the client needs to make sure that they prepare the ground to receive our product? And these all form part of the implementation of the onboarding, and it's something that you need to take into consideration because sometimes it's not me the one responsible for that. I actually have a question for Robs. And Robs, so if you face those challenges of like having some situations that get off your hand to complete a successful onboarding process, how do you deal with those? How do you assure within your onboarding plan when you have those little obstacles, let's put it like this, that these are going to be concluded in time, even though it might not be necessarily something that you are fully responsible for?
Eu gosto muito de pensar em checklist. Eu tenho que mandar o e-mail, check. Eu tenho que configurar, check. Eu tenho que dar o treinamento, check. Eu tenho que confirmar que o cliente conseguiu usar 2 vezes. Check. O onboarding acabou. Então, eu preciso de algo mais palpável, né? A questão do sucesso, sim ou não. Não quer dizer que, ele conseguiu configurar, mas deu muito trabalho, né? Agora eu não quero saber quanto trabalho deu, agora eu quero saber se ele configurou sim ou não. Eu quero saber se está pronto para uso, sim ou não. Porque se está pronto para uso, mas ele não está usando, o problema é de adoção. Se não está pronto para uso, o problema é de onboarding, é de implantação técnica. Então, aqui eu diferencio os agentes, as pessoas, os profissionais envolvidos.
She tries to make it as straightforward and technical as possible. There is a checklist. She needs to make sure that all of the items there are concluded. When it comes to like, was the client trained? Is all the installations and necessities and system or operational up to date and available? Yes. So if everything is fine, but maybe the client isn't really using it, then it's not an implementation or onboarding issue. It's a product adoption issue. And she needs to understand that because she needs to know whose actors she needs to action on each one of these stages. If it's an onboarding process, it's X, Y, and Z. If it's a product adoption one, then the strategy, the approach, and the people involved are different than the first ones, okay?
Não só no nosso lado, mas também do lado do cliente. Porque normalmente o onboarding ou a instalação, a parte técnica, não é feita pelo usuário. Então, eu já tenho 3 personas envolvidas aqui. O tomador de decisão que comprou, que deu o produto para a operação, a pessoa que está fazendo a configuração do produto e depois, no dia a dia, o usuário. Então, se vai trocar a pessoa com que eu vou me relacionar, eu tenho que entender até onde ela sabe desse processo e o que é sucesso para ela.
She said also that it's very important to understand that it's not just from our perspective, but also from the client's perspective to make sure that who you need to action depending on the stage that you are, because there are possibly 3 different personas on that process. There is the decision maker, there is the technical or systems facilitator, the facilitator, and there is the end user. So depending on where the problem lies on, and also depending on their capabilities within this process, you need to know who you're going to action. You cannot action end user for something that is a decision maker problem. Maybe they haven't signed for an additional module and the end user is expecting to have a service that is not really available on the platform. So it's for the decision maker, not for the end user or the facilitator to deal with.
Okay, so these are a lot of considerations on how you design the customer journey. It sounds like for each one, you have specific goals and targets that are quantitative. We have specific metrics aligned with those. And then we define the different milestones or steps for each phase with regards to what the customer needs in order to reach a success for that phase. And in addition, you might even have considerations around what activities you're going to do for each phase per the different personas so that you have an engagement with each persona. I think that's one of the things that companies fails constantly. They simply create a customer journey and they don't make sure that each one of the phases includes proactive activities with each customer persona. And thereby, all of a sudden, by the time we get to the engagement process or the engagement phase, we haven't really had too many touch points with either the end user or the executive sponsor that we don't even know who they are, or it's very hard to re-engage them. I think it's very smart to say you have different personas. When you design the customer journey, what are the proactive activities you're going to have in each phase?
Acho que tem um ponto que a gente brinca bastante aqui no Brasil, que fazer sucesso do cliente não é passar a mão no telefone e ligar para ele. Fazer sucesso do cliente é entender o que ele quer e desenhar um processo para que ele consiga o que ele quer. A gente nunca recebeu uma ligação do Spotify ou da Netflix para avisar que a nossa série está no ar, né? Mas eles têm outras formas de comunicar conosco para que a gente tenha sucesso nessa jornada de uso. Então, ele está me ensinando a usar e lá na frente, quando eu já estou acostumada com o produto, ele continua me engajando, ele continua criando pontos de contato comigo para que eu esteja engajado no uso do produto. Então, fazer sucesso do cliente não é só passar a mão no telefone e ligar.
She's saying that not necessarily, if you think about it, a healthy or a successful client or guaranteeing, assuring that you have a successful client, happy client means that you're going to grab a phone and give them a call. Not necessarily. It depends on, you need to understand what exactly means to be successful on the business that you have, how the client will adopt your product. She even used it as an example like Spotify and Netflix. We don't get calls from them letting us know that the new version of the podcast or a new TV show or series with new episodes or whatever. They have other means to communicate that. And since the start, they developed a way to educate us on that, to make sure that we were engaging on that as well in order to establish that this is a successful relationship between them and us, individually in this case. So you need to consider that as well.
I love that, the customizing the journey for the customer's specific needs and knowing to ask the right questions so that you could serve them in a personalized way. So this is fascinating. The customer journey that you depicted here goes way above the customer journey for the usage, because it really highlights the importance of asking customers questions so we can tailor the experience well beyond the product experience, making sure that they receive value.
Acho que o mais importante no sucesso do cliente é a gente entender quem é o cliente e o que é sucesso para ele. Então, para que eu consiga entender quem é o cliente, sim, eu preciso do desenho das personas. Eu preciso saber qual é o canal que ele está, qual é a linguagem, qual é o tom que ele prefere ser tratado, para que eu consiga, da melhor forma possível, seja humana ou tecnológica, criar os pontos de contato para entregar sucesso para ele. Né? E essa ideia do que é sucesso, mesmo que eu tenha um produto só, vai ser diferente para categorias diferentes de cliente. Então, eu preciso trabalhar uma segmentação de carteira ali para que eu consiga entregar em massa de uma forma personalizada.
Yes, there are two main things, which is like what does success mean to that specific client and how you can deliver that. And also you need to understand every client specifically. And you have to approach even with the basic things, tone, frequency, the kind of subject. Because even if you just have one product, that one product doesn't mean one approach for your whole portfolio. You might need to establish different strategies according to different characteristics of your clients. And you're selling the same product, but in several different ways.
I also wanted to inquire a little bit about this chart here. If I had to interpret it correctly, I would say, look, if you don't design an effective onboarding process, you're never getting to break-even point. Payback means break-even, right? Actually, you're going to have the churn here. Yes?
Yes.
But if you nail the onboarding and the adoption, you might be breaking even. The onboarding, maybe you get it. But if you do really good on all three phases and continue to have proactive action items in the engagement process, then you should be expecting to see well beyond what, like your whole revenues as a company should go much higher. That's why it's so important to design a customer journey that is effective, customized, and pursuing value to customers. Yeah? Can you tell me a little bit more about how you were thinking about this?
Vamos separar aqui a ideia um pouquinho da experiência do sucesso. De novo, nós estamos falando apenas do sucesso. E existe uma taxa de sucesso muito pequena para produtos que não têm um onboarding bem desenhado. Fato. Né? A taxa de sucesso é o cliente consegue fazer sim ou não. Né? Não importa se foi fácil ou se foi difícil, ele consegue fazer sim ou não. E quando a gente olha para o custo de aquisição de cliente, nós temos um valor que gastamos já de largada ali. Vamos supor que foram $500 por cada cliente que temos, e esse cliente vai pagar uma mensalidade de $100. Ele vai ter que ficar pelo menos 5 meses para pagar o que eu já gastei, eu não estou faturando nada. Então, nesse ponto, quando eu consigo superar o onboarding, passar ali os primeiros 3 meses de vida do cliente e ele já entra numa fase de adoção, eu posso aumentar o lifetime value, o tempo que esse dinheiro fica, esse cliente me deixa dinheiro aqui na empresa. Se eu não consigo entregar sucesso em cada uma das etapas, o cliente sai. Ele vai churnar.
So basically, she said that when you start with a client, you start from a negative point of view financially, because if you only consider the successful rate of product adoption, if you only consider like implementation, the successful rate is going to be the margin will be very minimal. And she gave an example. Let's say that I spend $500. That's my average cost on every deal that I make, with the professionals involved, the processes. Well, if I am charging from the same customer $100 a month, then it means that I need at least for this client to stay with us for 5 months in order to get it back. And I'm only going to actually produce value from that after the 5th month. That's when I'm going to start gaining from that transaction. So the product adoption, the processes that I do for the implementation, for the onboarding, are extremely crucial for me to increment my value, which only in this example happens from the 5th month. Obviously, this varies. It depends on each company, on the product itself. But the idea of I don't get it back at first, I need to establish a long-term relationship, because that's when I'm going to actually make this profitable. That's the idea behind what Rob said.
Yeah. Would you say that companies that have MRR, meaning subscriptions that are monthly, not annual, it's even more important to have a customer success journey than just a user journey?
No Brasil, nós chamamos de empresa de recorrência, né? Modelo de cobrança recorrência, ou PNUs, e você paga para depois usar e nada garante que você precisa pagar de novo. A única coisa que garante que você precisa pagar de novo é se você quiser. Não tem um contrato que te diz que você tem que pagar todos os meses. Ou não tem um contrato que te diz que se você cancelar, você vai receber uma multa. E aí vou citar aqui novamente Netflix. Né? Não, eu não tenho nenhuma obrigatoriedade de pagamento. A única coisa que garante a minha recorrência é o meu sucesso. Então, sim, essas são as empresas que mais precisam se preocupar com estratégias de sucesso do cliente.
Yeah, she said, Irit, that the companies that rely a lot in the pay-as-you-go model system, they need it even more to have a very clear, very specific, and very objective success plan. Because nothing guarantees that that client, and she used Netflix again as an example, nothing guarantees that because I have paid for this month's subscription that I'm going to do it next month. I might not. So if I might not, it means that my company needs to understand very well what I need, what I want, what kind of products they're offering me to retain me, because that's pretty much like how they exist.
I love this. I think it makes such a clear and concise point about why we have customer success in general. We can't leave things for maybe chance or random probabilities. We have to take control back. We have as companies to really analyze when is the payback period. How long does it take us to keep a customer before we become profitable, and make sure we really put a lot of attention on this period. And then some companies think that after they get to break even, they can rest. But in fact, if they keep on being proactive, they're going to see a much faster profitable growth, higher shared wallet from their existing customer base. So this was really fascinating, and I love your perspective on it, Robs.
Thank you. Acho que o mais importante de toda essa análise de a sopa de letrinha que a gente chama no Brasil, né, do CAC versus LTV, com churn, com NPS, isso são técnicas isoladas. A gente precisa saber quando aplica cada uma dessas técnicas. E aí uma linha de raciocínio do início da vida do cliente até o fim da vida do cliente pode tornar isso mais simples. Quando que começa a vida do cliente? Quando ele contrata. Tá? O que precisa acontecer agora? Funcionar. Depois, o que precisa acontecer? Ele usar. Depois, o que precisa acontecer? Ele querer mais ou ele indicar. Então, a linha de raciocínio, ela vem do ciclo de vida do cliente. Isso torna mais fácil a gente entender todas as técnicas envolvidas e aí depois dá para aprofundar na técnica.
She was saying that this little, we call it in Brazil, like, I'm not sure if it's the same word in English, but like this letter soup, the soup of little letters, like CAC, LTV, they all mean something, but you need to know exactly when to apply them, which circumstance, what strategy you use behind each one of them, because they're different stages, right? I mean, the implementation, the system is up and running, the client is using it as they should, but they're happy with it, which might generate referrals, upsell, cross-sell, growth from that account, but at least you will start like spreading out from that account, generating other opportunities, which is another great way to grow, and even cheaper, I would say, that new businesses promote for a lot of reasons. So all of these is a process behind this study and this analysis, all this analytical way of looking into this.
I'm always so impressed of how much thought leadership is coming from Brazil. The first time I noted it was when I looked at who made it to the top 200 strategists in the world, and noticed that almost 10% of that list was from Brazil. I was like, what is going on with Brazil? And now I understand. It's really very talented, passionate, intelligent people who really like to ask the hard questions, come up with thoughtful frameworks and strategies, and they love talking to one another, sharing it with one another, such friendly people. And I'm honored, Robs, that you took a chance on us on our YouTube channel to just share some of it, some of the wisdom that comes from Brazil. I wanted from my end to just highlight how much talent is in Brazil. And thank you so much for allowing me to share this with the world. Guys, if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps the channel a lot, and it will also keep you always updated on the latest videos that we do here about customer success, and keep your learning about this amazing profession. Keep on going and learning from other people. Thank you so much, Ariel and Robs.